$6 million, to answer Senator Hennessy's question, is the cap on the total, and there's like somewhere near 3 million, but somewhere between 2.5 and 3 million being received annually.
Right.
And that, so, you know, going out and trying to raise more money towards the cap, that makes some sense. I don't think that number's moved for a long period of time. So to assure that the program is doing what it currently is to do, which is try to meet as many obligations for low-income families as it can, which is great. It's hit 60%. That sounds good. But we haven't been receiving near the cap, so I don't know. It's a matter of approach, and I guess I wonder if you've given thought to should we see the dollar amount go up first before we start distributing more to fewer people.
Right. I think that with this legislation, we will see increased interest in the program and increased awareness of the program, which in some people's minds has been an issue because of other legislation and other programs. Maybe the tax credit scholarship program is not received or the awareness is not out in the community over the past number of years as when the program first started. So I think there'll be a renewed effort to make the program known both to businesses and individuals. Individuals now interest in dividends tax. So I think that this legislation will help both providing more scholarships to students who have not been able to get a scholarship in the past, as well as hopefully in the future middle-class families as well.
Follow-up? You raised another interesting question. The interest in dividends tax is being phased out. I don't know how much it contributes to this 2.5 to 3 million, but that can't be a source in the future, can it?
Yes, it's being phased out over a number of years. I think it's going down to 3% this year. Yeah, I think that's another reason that publicity and making awareness of the program to businesses is very important.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senators.
Representative Luno would like to speak. Good morning. You had signed in and you want to speak.
Yes, thank you very much. I was not aware that this had moved so quickly, so thank you very much, members of the Senate Education Committee, for your efficiency in moving through, we're on 1298, correct?
Yes.
Correct. So just very briefly, for the record, my name is David Luno. I'm a state rep from Hopkinton, representing the people of Hopkinton and Concord, and I serve on the House Education Committee. In my role outside of the State House, I also work with several institutes of higher education and represent 2 scholarship funds, both at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and at the University of New Hampshire. And one of the hallmarks behind scholarship funds are the fact that they're directed to students with needs, to students with financial need. And it's one of the hallmarks not only of the funds that I'm involved with, but also I think has really been a hallmark on making sure that scholarships provide access to students regardless of the student's family's financial needs. So one of the concerns that I have, and in fact 9 members of the House Education Committee had, is this bill's objective to raise the eligibility from approximately $70,000 for a family to $132,000 for a family of 4, and that really, in our opinion, moves the objective away from providing scholarships based on needs, based on financial need. Donors to a lot of these scholarship funds recognize that objective, and I think they would not look favorably on seeing the eligibility requirement raised so significantly. The tax credit scholarship program lacks the reporting fidelity that I think the legislature deserves and should be significantly improved before making any changes to the program. In particular, the reports received so far do not show scholarship totals for each school, or how the money is used, or in fact what the student's situation was before taking the tax credit scholarship. I think that information could all be very useful to the legislature in evaluating the program before making any desired changes. And then finally, the 12 bill, it did receive an ought to pass recommendation from the House Education Committee on a party line 10-9 vote on the floor. It was also very, very partisan as far as its support, with 159 voting to support the bill, all Republicans, no Democratic votes, and 152 objecting to the committee report, including seven Republicans. So I would say, given the environment today, this had very partisan support and strong bipartisan opposition. So with that, I hope this committee would look favorably to dispose of this bill, either in another fashion to study it or to find it inexpedient to legislate. Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Senator Khan.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
So, 2 thoughts. One, every legislative session this comes up. I mean, there's something about RSA 77G that comes before the legislature. So we review this every year. We see this data. One of the things that I find perplexing is not knowing how much students are receiving for different aid categories. Often the reporting goes, like that. Income is at the poverty level. Income is at 185% of. And what are the awards for the income groups? Is it consistent, or have you seen any kind of reporting that would indicate how consistently we're awarding dollars to people at income levels?
No, thank you very much, Senator Khan, for the question. No, I have not seen that report, and I think that's a good example why the current reporting on the tax credit scholarships does lack that type of fidelity that I think would be very useful to the legislature. In fact, the only reports that I've seen are listed by schools that are taking tax credit scholarship recipients, and all it shows is the number of scholarship by school and the minimum and maximum scholarship amount. It doesn't even show a total scholarship amount, let alone the granularity that Senator Khan has suggested.
May I follow?
Follow up?
Thank you. Would you believe that there is now a 2022 poverty level table? And that the income level for 500% of poverty for a family of 4 would be $138,750.
I would certainly believe that. Thank you very much, Senator Khan.
Thank you. But there is that table now.
Yeah.
I discovered last night.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank
Great,
you very much.
thank you very much.
Anybody in the audience who wants to testify? Did you sign up? Come up and state your name.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am Representative Muriel Hall, and I represent the towns of Bow and Dunbarton in Merrimack County. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today on HB 1298. This bill extends the Education Tax Credit Scholarship Program to wealthier families in New Hampshire by raising income eligibility levels. When this bill was introduced to the Ed Committee in the House, the sponsor of this bill noted that, as we heard today, it made just one very simple change. And we also heard it only changes one digit, a 3 to a 5. That could be substantial. Well, yes, it does do that. The national poverty level income is $26,500. This bill would increase the eligibility requirement from 300% of poverty to 500%. That one-digit change raises the income cap of $79,500 for a family of 4 to $132,500. That's an increase of over $50,000, which in my estimation is one Bow teacher's salary with 6 years' experience, $50,000. It's also one that would exclude only 1/3 of New Hampshire families. Imagine 2/3 of New Hampshire families would qualify for this scholarship program, a program that was designed for the needy. It would be one thing if there was an abundance of scholarship money in the account to be distributed, but that's clearly not the case. Last year, the wait list was longer than the list of students who were awarded scholarships. 604 students met the 300% requirement, but we heard that there was a wait list of 600 to 800 students who did not receive a scholarship due to lack of funds. The tax credit scholarship program was established to afford low-income families the opportunity to choose the schools that best fits their needs. We need to focus on these students who truly need this financial support. As we heard last year, 63% of the funds went to families who qualify for free and reduced lunches, which is at 185% of poverty level. The proposed 500% income cap of $132,500 is way above New Hampshire's median income level of $77,923. If we cannot fund it now, why expand it? This bill violates the program's purpose to help families in need. It diverts state tax money to families who make over $132,000. The law requires that 40% of the funds need to be allocated to free and reduced lunch students. This bill would allow 60% of that money to go to the middle class. Let's not allow for the poorest to be cast aside. HB 1298 does not make just one simple change to the program. It may be a one-digit change, just a 3 to a 5, but the effects of this change could clearly result in unintended consequences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee members?
Okay.
Senator Khan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was unaware of 600 to 800 students being on a waiting list. And so where did that information come from?
It came from testimony. I have to say, I'm new to all this.
Yeah.
We heard testimony and it wasn't refuted, the 600, 800 waiting list.
Yeah. Would you deduce from that if we're funding 600 students, and they were all income qualified, I assume. So does that indicate to you what it indicates to me, that we could double the amount of money received in order to fill the wait list?
That's what we heard. That's what I
Thank
would
you.
say, yes.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next one is Representative Mary Beth, is it Walt?
Walls. You say it like the four walls around you. Thank you. For the record, my name is Representative Mary Beth Walls. I represent Merrimack County District 23, the towns of Bow and Dunbarton. Yes, the same towns Muriel represents. We drove in together. So we heard the sponsors say in both the House and here in the Senate that this is one simple change. And I would argue that the words used by the sponsors here are pretty misleading. That they also said that there's no government funds here. Well, technically, that's accurate. I find that incredibly misleading because this is a tax credit that funds this. Tax credits are tax shifting. I'm a former tax lawyer. I'm somebody who chaired a committee in the House on municipal taxes. I understand tax credits. If you have tax shifting, it simply means that you're changing who's paying taxes. You're allowing one group not to pay a tax. That doesn't mean the money does not need to be collected. They also talk about this being a donation. A donation is a charitable gift. This is not a donation. This is something simply choosing to shift where their tax dollars go. They're going to pay that money one way or the other. Again, it's not a donation. It's tax shifting. So by using language like donation, like a simple change, by saying that this is not government money, it's incredibly misleading language that's coming from the proponents of this. And I think we need to keep our eye on the ball here. This is public money that we're talking about. This is tax dollars we're talking about. This is not some sort of charitable thing done by businesses. It simply says it's just them directing their tax dollars, not a donation. Language matters. So this is it's not a gift. It is a tax shifting, and it's going to go to those in the middle class. It's going to go to those who can afford tuition. And I think that, just as Representative Hall testified, that this is a corruption of the original purpose of the law, and that the law was supposed to be for low-income students, and that's not what this change would do. With that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee members? I don't see one. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to testify on this bill? If not, then I close the hearing. Senator Hennessy?
Are we going to hear from the scholarship organization? I just want to find out if the.
I don't see one.
I just want to find out if there is in fact a 600-child wait list for the program currently.
Is there anybody from the scholarship? Oh. Nice to know. Ms. Baker?
Hello, Kate Baker, Children's Scholarship Fund. What questions can I answer for you?
Thank you for coming in from the hall. Sorry, there is a lag
okay.
sometimes in the
It's okay.
audio. We just heard testimony that there's a 600-child wait list for the current program at 300%.
So that was during COVID, when
Okay.
the schools were closed. There was that many children that were hoping to get a scholarship from us when the public schools were closed and the families that were low income, delivery drivers, grocery store employees wanted to go somewhere else or homeschool their kids.
Can you tell us what the wait list is now?
There isn't a wait list right now because this is when people are starting to apply for the fall.
Okay, so what was the wait list? What was the most recent wait list when you
So
had
this past fall, we helped 1,017 kids. And how many kids couldn't I help is your question from that initial group? Well, people kept applying because the Education Freedom Account was implemented. And so there were 2,000 kids that got education freedom accounts. I couldn't give scholarships to all of them, only 720 of them, right? So there's a gap there between the number of kids that got education freedom accounts and the number that I could help with scholarships. So I ran out of scholarship money like in September. I was able to help those kids with education freedom accounts though, at that point. So the wait list we're talking about is from last time.
Okay.
So
thank you.
last year we helped 600 kids, right? This year we helped 1,000 kids. When I helped the 600 kids, not this fall, but last fall, that's when I had the wait list.
Did, follow up?
Does that help?
Did
Is
you
that-
have the wait list because you didn't have enough funds?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So not this fall, last fall, that was when the schools were closed. And we helped 626 kids, and then I ran out of money. Yes.
So follow up. So what was the difference in your funding for 2020 versus 2021, the fall?
So that 626 group costs 2.2 million. The 117, how many was it this year? Hold on, let me pull it out so I get the right numbers.
1,017, right, not
Yeah,
117?
When I go back in time, yeah. Or I could just do it on my calculator, because I know the average. Or we could look at the Department of Revenue reports, too. 626 kids last fall times 2,600. So that's 1.6. So I went from 1.6 at the 626 to 2.2 at the 1,017. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much,
Oh,
Ms.
you're
Baker.
welcome. Yeah.
Anybody else who is wanting to speak? Okay, now we will close the hearing on 1298. And just for your knowledge, we have had virtual opposition and support. The 4 people support this bill, and the opposition to this bill was 36. Now, we'll move on to House Bill number 1193. And the sponsor, Representative Cordelli.
Thank you again, Chair Ward and committee members. For the record, I am Glenn Cordelli, representing Tufton Borough, Moulton Borough, and Sandwich in the beautiful Lakes region. HB 1193 is the result of my working with the Department of Education. The department had received several complaints that we tried to address in this legislation. And I should right up front emphasize that these were isolated complaints. They were a large number, but the department and I felt that they were serious enough complaints that should be addressed in legislation. The first section of the bill is related to charter school admission. And there had been a couple of complaints about non-application fees being charged to students and families who wanted to enroll in the charter school. And there was the feeling that the amount of these fees prevented them from having the financial means to enroll in the charter school. So the legislation that you see indicates that non-application fees to be charged to students cannot be assessed as a condition for enrollment. We don't want fees charged that prevent someone enrolling in a public charter school, and these are public schools. So we wanted to make sure that charter schools were not preventing students from being able to apply. So that was the first area that we wanted to address. The second complaint that had been received by the department was for a couple of charter schools that are on the borders of our state with neighboring states. Charter schools can accept out-of-state students, and several do. The issue came up, and the complaint and concern was that with these border charter schools, were they accepting out-of-state students and charging them a higher tuition to enroll than the charter school would get from the state for an in-state student? So we wanted to make sure that the preference would be given to in-state students in enrolling in a charter school, and that each charter school has a maximum number of students per their charter with the state, and we wanted to make sure that we were providing seats for in-state students who wanted to enroll in that charter school, and then take a look at any out-of-state students. So that's the second part of this bill, and we hope that that will address the couple of problems that were received by the department in terms of complaints from families. So it's both fees not being assessed as a condition of enrollment, and preference being given to in-state students as opposed to out-of-state students enrolling in a charter school. And that's the purpose of this legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Questions from the committee? Senator Khan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning again.
Good morning again.
I think that may get repeated a third time.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about the definition of non-application fees, because it's I doubt that that's described elsewhere in the statute.
Right. Yeah, maybe someone from the department might have a better answer, but I'm not aware of anything in statute for that specifically.
And can you give us a description, because it's kind of like, by not stating it in the affirmative, it leaves one wondering, one, what is it? And two, it could cover a lot of things that, some of which schools might find necessary for their operations.
Right. And in the complaints that were received, these were thought to be excessive fees that were more in line with almost a tuition in order to get into the school, rather than a fee for various activities or labs or something at the school. These were not considered by the school to be application fees, but curricular activity fees, but assessed to the parents that prevented them from having the funds to enroll because of the amount of the fees.
Should we be asking others in their testimony, or maybe to come forward, to give us an affirmative definition of what this is?
Right.
Maybe
and
we could add a definition to
right.
this.
I'm sure the department has more information as to what these fees were and the amounts involved. But again, these were isolated incidents, but of enough concern that we wanted to make sure that we were looking out for the students.
We have Nate Green from the department here, so
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Nate Green? Nate Green? In the hallway? Nate Green from the DOE.
Morning, Senators. For the record, I'm Dr. Nate Green with the New Hampshire Department of Education, Bureau of Educational Opportunities. And I'm happy to answer any questions on this particular bill.
I'll ask again. I asked the prime sponsor, if there was an affirmative definition of application fee and non-application fees, like what fees is he attempting to cover beyond an application fee? That's what's not clear.
Sure, yeah. So in terms of charter schools are prohibited from charging an application fee. So right off the bat, we define at the department an application fee as a fee that is contingent upon enrollment. So it's something that a student or a student's family would have to pay in order to gain entrance into the charter school. So that right off the bat is prohibited. We have had some instances where charter schools were charging a fee up front that they refer to as a materials and supplies fee, which is a fairly general description for anything that could cover books, notebooks, materials, really anything the charter school might want to put in there and just put under the label materials and supplies. And in some cases, there were schools that were charging this materials and supplies fee, but they were making it a condition of enrollment, which then essentially became an application fee, which is prohibited. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this particular piece of legislation, the department had reached out and said, this is sort of a loophole that we want to fix to make sure that there aren't fees for students to gain entry into a charter school, is that we needed something stronger. We needed more language within our statutes that would prevent this for families. So I don't necessarily have a definition of an application fee versus a non-application fee, other than to say that charter schools cannot charge any fees that would be a condition of enrollment within the school. We do have fees that schools charge, whether they're a traditional public school or a chartered public school. A good example of this would be if a student wanted to take an AP course, such as AP chemistry. The student can enroll in that course, they can take that course. There's no fee for that, but at the end of the course, if the student wants to take the AP exam with the College Board, there might be a $150 or $200 fee for the student to take the actual exam. Sometimes schools will pay the fee for the student and the family. Sometimes the student's family pays a fee. But that fee is not a condition of enrollment in the class. The student can take the class and receive a credit, and it goes on their transcript, regardless of whether they take the course or not. And so that would be an example of a non-application fee, because the student is able to access that educational opportunity without having to pay the fee. The fee itself is optional at the end for the exam. So we didn't want to prohibit schools being able to charge for those types of fees. I think it would be difficult to have a single definition because there are a variety of fees that could be allowed, that students and families might want to pay to access things like extracurricular opportunities, after-school programs, things like paying for the AP exam fees. And whenever we have a definition, it tends to limit us in not thinking through all of the potential scenarios.
Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Can you tell me, with these fees that the schools were charging, were they charging them to all students or just out-of-state students, in-state students?
Across the board.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of them, in some cases, we were seeing fees between $800 and $1,000. So they were creeping up there in terms of being pretty large and onerous fees. There are some schools that tried to work with families that said they couldn't pay. They wanted the families to provide a certain number of hours of community service to the school. But again, tying those things to enrollment creates an application fee scenario that charter schools are prohibited from. And I would add too as well, we needed some stronger language within this because we also have a federal charter school grant right now. And so for charter schools to access that federal money, they have to show that there are no application fees for the schools. And so we've even worked with some of our charter schools so that they could write some internal policies to show that they don't have these kinds of application fees in order for them to access federal dollars for their school.
Follow up.
In that grant, do you know if there's a definition of non-application fee that we could use?
I can take a look. I don't know off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Senator Khan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Morning.
Do we know what the impact of prohibiting the fees will be?
So for the most part, we've been able to work with all of our schools now to create internal policies that already accomplishes this goal. So we've reached out to the schools that we knew were charging some of these fees that kind of cross that line into being an application fee. Many of these schools have wanted to take advantage of that federal charter school grant, and so they've stopped charging these. But they've done it on the condition that they could potentially receive these federal dollars. And at some point, that grant is going to go away. And so we wanted to make sure that we created a long-term solution where once the federal dollars went away and there wasn't that incentive, that we still had a state law that prohibited charter schools from collecting these kinds of fees. Because they are public schools, we need to make sure that they're open and available to all students who want to attend, and that there isn't a financial cost for families up front to attend a charter school.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who needs to speak to this? Another sheet? So we all set? Okay, that concludes the testimony for House Bill 1193. And we'll move. So that's closed, and we go into the next one, which is 1132. Let's see. I think we're gonna have to try to speed this up a little bit, so try to summarize your testimony. Representative Ladd, welcome.
Good morning, Senator Ward and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Rick Ladd. I'm representative from Haverhill, New Hampshire. I also chair House Education. I'm here today to speak and support HB 1132. This is a bill that deals with charter conversion schools. As you know, we have a number of charter schools, approximately 30. I believe we have about 30, not including VLACs. We at this time have no charter conversion schools. This is a different type of a charter school, one which can be so designated and set in accordance with law by the local school board or school district. What we've done in this particular bill is that there's a process which is in law. You can see in the report there, or the bill that you have in front of you, that prior to this bill, the requirements to become a charter school, you had to have a vote of the school board to be a charter conversion school. But there was also some additional requirements that had to be taken in order to become a charter conversion. A majority of prospective teachers vote by a ballot to approve such conversion in a district. So if you have those teachers that are prospective teachers for that, they would have to have that majority vote. But you have to have a 2/3 vote of teachers so vote in a single school district. So you'd have to have a 2/3 vote of teachers for approval of a charter conversion school. The other portion, which is a requirement in law right now, is you must have a written consent of the superintendent of schools and of the principal of the schools. This bill deletes that portion. It deletes the 2/3 portion, and it adds to the bill that you have to have the vote of the school board, but a majority vote taken by the school district at the annual meeting. And that vote has to be a 2/3 vote as approved. When we were in committee, we had two amendments. One was for a 3/5 vote, which is your basic 60%, or the 2/3 vote, which is a much more difficult vote to attain. The bar is much higher, a 2/3 vote, which, by the way, was presented by the other party. We adopted that amendment and moved forward with this bill. The reason why we need charter conversion schools is that I was in a district myself, not in this state, but in another state where we had this occur, where the community decided we need to change what we're doing in our schools. And for a number of reasons, we did this with 3 different charters. One was one community wanted to have schools which were more traditional in nature, have those rules and a way of discipline, of dress, of the emphasis on reading, writing, arithmetic. So they asked for a charter school. This came from the community. Another situation was that they saw that they wanted more emphasis on science in the community. So a charter conversion was developed based upon science as an emphasis. And we had another one too with mathematics, and we see that occurring in our own state right now, where we have low achievement scores, and there's really an emphasis amongst the community members, let's get those things elevated. Now, how do we do that? You do it, of course, with the instructional staff that you have. When we had the charters that I was involved with, we looked at, when we were trying to move to a science orientation, that there were a lot of teachers that had certification, but the certification wasn't in the domain that we were trying to drive for in terms of science. We also were locked in due to negotiated contracts, whereas we were in a district, and if there's a vacancy in the school, the first thing you had to do is look at a eligible teacher that might be in another school somewhere else within the district. They had first option. So many of the principals were very clever in writing their job descriptions saying, right, yeah, we want certification, but we want an emphasis in this area. That worked in some cases, but generally speaking, no, because the sending principal who had these teachers had always rated them, if they had evaluated them at all, and some were very negligent, as excellent teachers. So how do you deny a person coming into a charter school that has that K through 8 or K through 12 certification and has high recommendations in your own district? So then the ability to move these schools in the directions we wanted to move was very, very difficult. The charter conversion school is a way of doing that, where you designate this is the mission that we're going to have in this particular school. What you have to do then is that where you were before, you may have had union organization within that school. The charter does not eliminate unions from occurring. You can have a union within the charter conversion school. But what you do have, though, is you now have staff that are oriented either in that language area they're emphasizing or that traditional science programs you're wanting to emphasize and have the skills in the science domains, which many people in the elementary grades don't come with that in their resume background. So it was decided that we would move forward. This bill came forward. Yes, it's not strictly just a Republican bill. There was a person that wrote it on the committee that was also a Democrat, recognizing that this is an opportunity to provide students and communities more involvement and input in terms of where they're going with their schools. So the charter conversion, even though we don't have any, I know why we don't have any, it's very difficult to have it. To jump over that bar and have a principal saying, yes, I support that, or a superintendent. And these people may not even live in the community which they're talking about. Same thing with the 2/3 vote of the teachers. Many of the teachers live outside that district and don't have that residency in that district. So what we're trying to do is have the decision made now by the residents of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Khan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, it sounds like maybe you are aware of some other states that have public charter schools that with greater success than we've had. And I guess I wonder, what are those examples?
Well, we can look at, thank you very much, Senator Khan. You can look at even Washington, D.C. itself right now, which the majority of public schools there are now charter schools, and you see the gap in those subgroups shrinking and improving, whereas the gap that we have in our public schools here in the state are getting larger. The gap between where we want them, where the bar is, and where they are, they're going lower. So obviously, we're not meeting the needs of all those subgroups, those subcategories, which we get in our forms which come to us, dealing with backgrounds of individuals, poverty, et cetera. They're seeing in Washington, D.C. going the other way. So the charter schools are oriented around the needs of the students and do provide that more so than the regular structure that we had there. Same thing where I was in Alaska. I had a school which our achievement was the highest in the district. And the district was the size of West Virginia. And we had over 35 individual schools in that district with thousands of kids. And for me to maintain that level where that bar was for our school, I was constantly fighting the contract where I'd have to take the people from other schools and bring them in. And I had the support of my staff saying, we want to keep our bar up here and our community as well. Charter school would allow you to do that. I wasn't a charter school, however, and I had to fight to keep it there. It can be done, but it's unusual.
If I might,
Follow up?
it's sounding like a significant difference between, or motivation for going to a chartered public school is to relieve that charter school from terms of a contract, a labor contract. Is that one of the motivations? for
No,
doing this?
no. It's one of the causations leading towards that. However, you could have a charter conversion school, and I would encourage it. In fact, I saw the schools up there when they had the people employed, which were all public school teachers. They were part of the union as well, but they were very pleased to see that occur where they could raise the bar in the schools. But there's a lot of reasons for, excuse me, for a charter school coming. It's still governed by your local school board. They are the one, the monies come from the state to the school board, to the trustees of the charter. And they're 5-year commitments.
Senator Hennessy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. In your experience, have you seen any conversions that happened in a declining enrollment little town that actually ended up helping the school because it attracted out of district students?
Declining enrollment's what we're looking at in this state, all over the state in the small schools. And one of the issues which we have, and we had a little discussion even yesterday on this, is that the smaller school has an economic problem in terms of the revenues coming in, be able to sustain the AP courses, being able to sustain all the enrichment courses. And that is very difficult to do with the budget constraints that they have. So now when we're looking at charter conversion school, though, the orientation's towards the mission of that school and the mission that's been set by the community that has that school in it. And so this charter conversion has more likely to meet the needs of the students, and there's more parent involvement, there's more involvement in terms of developing and designing where we're going with this, and more participation. My experience has been that it's a public school, but it's one that has a lot more ownership on the part of the community. And success, and success.
So by success, could that mean that the school ends up staying open as opposed to closing?
Where I lived, there was a law, once you got below 25 students in a school, you were closed automatically by the state, the Molly Hooch Bill. In this state, we don't have that. We have many small schools in this state which have 60 kids, K through 8. And of course, this is where the tuitioning agreements have to come in. But even the K through 8s at that size school, there are no efficiencies. You're playing catch up in everything you do. That's where we really do need to have more consolidation and not less, and we're going in the opposite direction in the state.
More questions? Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Representative Ladd. So, I don't know if it's half a question, half a statement. So, you've the voice of the public in those communities that are the hosts for the schools, school boards, I agree that those are the most powerful voices in the conversation. I'm still struggling, though, with eliminating, the voice of prospective teachers by vote of ballot, or the school superintendent or principal, their weigh in on this, only because, my experience has been, and it's, mostly in the Upper Valley, but in other places where I've lived, is that whether you lived in that community or not, these principals and superintendents and teachers are just as invested in the students. So maybe I'm reading this or not understanding it right. I'm just don't get why we're ruling that out. Like, I can see your intent, and the public voice and the school boards really matter, but why, if I went to work in another town, my investment is gonna be in that town and in those children in that town, because I've chosen to work there, and I don't know why my voice isn't part of that conversation. So can you help me with that a little bit?
When we talk about the Upper Valley, of course, both you and I are in the Upper Valley.
Yeah.
And with that, I know that in your particular situation, you have Lyme, where you have Crossroads Academy. Up my direction, there's only one charter school, and that's in Littleton, and that's North Country Charter, which is an excellent charter. The rate of superintendents coming and going in this state, along with principals right now, you're lucky to be able to retain a superintendent. It used to be the average lifespan of a superintendent in Massachusetts was about 5 years. Now it's down to probably half of that in terms of being in that district. In our state, I can't give you the number of superintendent vacancies right now. I would guess, and there's the association behind me, school boards, I guess we have at least 8 vacancies right now, and it's going to be a very high turnover of both principals and superintendents this summer. So there's no consistency there. Where we're going to get in terms of knowing the community, and especially in the Upper Valley, knowing the community is also knowing the culture of the community. And you look at the master plans of the community, and the reason why people are there is because I've lived there forever, and it's my community, and I like the rural nature of the environment. To know this, you have to live in the community. And this is where I really do respect, and as a principal or administrator myself, I will always take the recommendations of the teachers that I'm working with. You have to have ownership in the part of the classroom as well. But on an issue like this, where you have 66% of the community having to pass this bar in terms of we're going to have a charter conversion, you're going to be involving in that 66% the teachers that live in that district. They are part of that equation. But they're no more important in that equation, I believe, than the parent who has 3 or 4 or 5 kids in that school district. It's a team. And if we look at our statutes, the first several statutes we have in law right now say it's a shared responsibility between all those in the school. One individual, a principal, should not have the authority to say, I'm not going to write that letter in support. And there goes the whole charter conversion school. That is not correct. Nor should the superintendent be able to do that. And I believe that in order to get a 2/3 bar of teachers in the building, based upon a lot of reasons, it's very difficult to achieve. However, to get a 2/3 vote of the community is also difficult. But if that passes, then we should go forward with our charter. So I believe that the bar we have here is very, very high. It involves teachers as well, so the input will be heard.
All set?
Yes, for now, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Glad.
Senator Ward.
We have quite a few people who like to speak, and I'm going to have to ask that you keep it down to 3 minutes. Otherwise, we're not going to get through today. So, Representative Hill, do you support, but you don't want to speak? Representative Ellison.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee for taking my testimony on HB 1132 as amended. For the record, my name is Art Ellison. I represent Merrimack House District 27, which is made up of Concord Wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. I'll be very brief in my remarks. Having been a part of the House Education Committee hearing and the executive session, as well as participating in the House floor debate on this bill, I would strongly recommend that you determine that this legislation is inexpedient to legislate. The legislation as written is not in the best interest of New Hampshire's public school students, schools, or communities for the following reasons. First, by removing teachers and administrators from the decision-making process for a charter school conversion effort, we are blocking out those in our local communities who understand the needs of our students. Second, by making an existing public school into a charter conversion school, the background of the teaching staff would change dramatically, since only 50% of the teachers in the new school will have to be certified by the New Hampshire Department of Education. Third, all existing labor contracts between school staff, teachers, and administrator support personnel would terminate on the date of the official change to a charter conversion school. This action would almost certainly violate existing collective bargaining statutes. Fourth, and most importantly, the procedure for changing a public school into a charter conversion school as contained in this bill sets up the very real possibility that a small number of a town's citizens, as few as 20, as the current controversy taking place as we speak in one of our towns north of here, will be able to radically change a public school in such a way that it would have substantial, immediate, and long-range negative consequences for anyone living in that community. Local communities can already establish a public charter school, and many do so as an alternative to the existing program. However, the process for setting up those schools includes all elements of the educational community in a town or city. Despite my chair's attempt to frame this as a bipartisan bill, I would note that, in fact, it was a very partisan bill as it came out of the committee and a very partisan vote on the floor of the House. For these reasons, I would ask you to vote this as expedient to legislate. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt Southerton?
Hey, thank you, Matt Southerton. I've worked with charter schools for about 20 years in New Hampshire. I don't have a lot to add beyond what Representative Ladd added. During that time, only one charter school has received local authorization. I've worked with probably a half a dozen groups that have wanted to go through the local authorization path. Mostly they are groups of teachers working at the local level that have wanted to, for whatever reason, go through the local authorization path, and they've usually been prevented from doing so because they've met that conundrum of having to get buy-in from other schools and other teachers within the district. And that's, basically been the issue, right? So if you're one small school within your district, and for whatever reason, it might be right for you to go through the local authorization path, in order to get buy-in from all of those other schools within your district is really an unreachable goal. So I think that's basically all that I wanted to say.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Khan?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and greetings, Mr. Southerton. So why not just where 2/3 of the teachers so vote in a single school district? Why not just eliminate the word district from?
I will leave that language up to you. I personally believe that it should be in the voters' hands. I think that that takes the politics out of it. It just removes the politics, gives the freedom to the voter, and the voter can decide whether that's right for their community.
May I continue?
Follow up?
But if in that school, those teachers know the curriculum that's been offered, know the direction they want to be moving, know the kids that attend the school and the families, there's an advantage, it would seem, to retain as much of the school as possible.
Yeah, I would certainly want buy-in from the teachers. I would say, who is proposing this, right? Who's proposing that this school go through the local authorization path? Because it's certainly not easy, right? Would you be making any changes to the curriculum? I mean, the groups that I've worked with in the past have been teacher-led groups that have wanted to choose this path. So, again, this is sort of a hypothetical question. I don't know who would be proposing this change, but I would assume it would come from teachers and administrators. But ultimately, if this decision were going to be made, I would want it to be made by the voters.
And one more.
Follow-up.
Have there been any of those half dozen that you've worked with, have any of those been to the conclusion that they've become charters?
No, just Pace Career Academy, and that was supported by 3 school districts. I think 4 school districts.
And which academy was that?
Pace Career Academy that just recently closed.
And they were closed. What town was that?
Pittsfield, Allenstown, Chichester, and Pembroke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Thank you. Nate Green?
Thank you.
Good morning again. I don't have anything to add to this bill. I'm just here from the department if the committee has any questions for me as representative there.
Okay, have you heard anything up to this point that needs an answer?
No, so throughout the history of charter schools, we really haven't had a conversion charter school, so we don't have experience right now to draw from to say whether one particular way works versus another particular way, because we just haven't gone through that process yet.
Okay.
We have had a district-sponsored school, but it was a district-sponsored school that was created, as Matt mentioned, that was Pace Academy, but it wasn't a charter conversion school.
Okay, thank you, just hang on. Oh, Senator Hennessy has
No,
a
I
question.
just want to make a comment that there is
Okay.
another, the North Country Charter Academy is a school, sponsored school. The entire North Country district supports that school as well. so.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, just hang around in case we need you.
Will do.
Representative Cordelli? If you could keep your comments down to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated.
I'll try 1 minute. Thank you again, Glenn Cordelli, representing Tufton Borough, Moulton Borough, and Sandwich. I just want to make a couple of quick points. One, checking with the Education Commission of States, ECS. There are 46 states that have charter school laws. 41 of them have laws enabling for charter conversions. So this is nothing unusual. Secondly, I just wanted to mention that the school board will be voting on any charter conversion proposal. They are the representatives of the people. Administrators and teachers are employees of the school board. We heard also in prior testimony that this bill would be blocking the voice of those with understanding of the needs of students. And I think the reference was to teachers, but I would say that is incorrect. The people who have the most understanding of the needs of students are parents, and they're the ones with a voice in this process per HB 1132, and it is even set at a very high bar with a 2/3 community vote required. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Comments from the committee members? Senator Hennessy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. I just want to your point, I just want to make a comment about, or maybe it's a question, see if this is what it's like in your area, but in my local schools in Littleton, and there, many of the teachers are not only residents of Littleton as well, but they're also parents of kids in the school district. So I think that, to your point, parents know what's best for their kids. Sometimes those parents are actually teachers as well, and residents of the town that they teach in too.
Excellent point. I would definitely agree, and I think that that is the case in many districts, if not most.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Megan Tuttle from the New Hampshire NEA. Three minutes.
Oh, much less. Thank you. For the record, Megan Tuttle, President for NEA New Hampshire. I will keep this very brief. I do echo everything that Representative Ellison said. I think he took some of my testimony, but we just had a couple questions or comments on this. This is a, extremely consequential move by a district to do this. And so that has to be taken into account. Should not be entered into lightly. It is already on the books as a law, so it's not anything that isn't or couldn't happen. We did have some questions that we didn't feel were quite answered when it was in the House. Looking at those small school districts where there might only be one school for K through 8 or something like that, what does it mean for decisions related to special education? If there is, if it converts to a charter school and there is no local LEA, who's responsible for those special education services was a question we had. Also, what does it mean for any local collective bargaining agreements that might be in the school district already? If this happens in the middle of a CBA, what happens to that CBA? We didn't have answers to those, so those were things that we just wanted to bring up. We do appreciate the fact the House Ed Committee is placing a 2/3 majority vote requirement by the voters, given how important and consequential this decision could be. So that's all.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Senator Carr.
Well, thank you for your testimony, and I appreciate your bringing up the special education question, because we've got bills in front of us dealing with public charter schools and special education and agreements. And your question about, and so who do they make the agreement with? And can they obviate the need to provide special education just by that conversion? Oh my gosh. That's a pretty nefarious thought, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Because a entire school district could eliminate their special education program. Is that your conclusion?
That's how we're understanding it, yes.
Well,
Did you have another question?
I just left with amazement that we haven't addressed that yet. So thank you,
Probably
Madam
gonna
Chair.
come up.
Maybe Mr. Green would like to address that question, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Nick Green, do you have an answer for this?
Yes, but I will say I'm not a lawyer. So if you want a more legal definition, I would reach out to Chris Bond. Thank you, Megan. So special education responsibility resides with the LEA. And so our understanding at this time is that even if a district were to take one of their district schools and turn it into a charter conversion school, that wouldn't shift the LEA, that charter school would continue to function as the LEA within the district. And so the responsibility for special education still falls on that school. It's a different situation than a state-sponsored charter school, because a state-sponsored charter school is receiving funds directly from the state and can take students from anywhere in the state, but the LEAs where students are still residents retain the responsibility for special education costs. In this case, those two things would overlap together on that school. But again, I'll just point out that we haven't ever dealt with this in the state before because we haven't had a charter conversion school. So our understanding is that special education would not go away. It would still be a responsibility on that school as the LEA.
Thank you. Chris Bond, do you have anything to add?
I think he's here.
Okay, so we get him in here? Yeah, Chris Bond, just ask him to come in here and. Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't hear the question, but we can repeat it.
Can he identify himself too? Please have him identify who he is and who he works for. Who is? Have him identify himself.
Yes, you will. You will identify yourself, but we did have a question.
Sure. So I'm Chris Bond. I work for the Department of Education. I'm also, my position is co-supervised by the Attorney General's office, and I'm actually here today on behalf of the Attorney General's office. So I'm the client, I'm the Attorney General's office's client counselor for the Department of Education. Chris Bond.
Thank you. Do you want to repeat your question, Senator Khan, that you had? The special education?
Yeah, yep. So the concern is that, say we've got small school districts. I have some in my area, believe it or not. And that it might have, 60 students or so. And if that school district took advantage of House Bill 1132, you don't have the bill in front of you,
No, 1132?
1132. This
I
is
don't,
what
I
we're-
was here for
what we're talking about
1513.
currently.
So, okay. Oh, thank you.
If it's helpful to have two lawyers at the table at the same time, no objection from me. No. That's, here, mine's all scribbled on.
That's why I use electronic version, because I can graph the ways. So I've been using that as a memory.
Did you print those out, Jay?
I did. I printed this one. Printed this one. Why would I do that?
I'm just feeling the air.
It just-
Yeah.
Better, if this is better answered with an email, that's okay too.
Yeah, I think that might be best if we can get back to you in writing
Yeah.
promptly.
So the question I think has arisen is a small school district, LEA, wants to convert to a public charter school. Would that LEA have the responsibility for providing special education to anybody in their district? So meaning they can't obviate that responsibility.
That would be my understanding, that the LEA cannot obviate its responsibility to provide special education services to the students residing in its district.
Okay, so I think that's important to have in our record, Madam Chair.
You will write an answer, written answer that we can have.
How fun is this? 2 lawyers for the price of 1. This is exciting.
Doubt
For
it.
the
I
record,
doubt
Diana, Senator Hennessy disagrees with that assessment. For the record, Diana Fenton, attorney for the Department of Ed. Thank you, Ava. So I think Nate Green is right. I mean, first and foremost, we don't have a factual scenario by which we can say, we've dealt with this before. We have this prior experience by which we've been able to apply a certain set of facts to the law. We don't have that. However, what we do know is that an LEA could not sidestep its federal obligation to provide special education. I just don't see how it could do that. But again, we are at a loss simply because we don't have that kind of case law background, if you will. But I think that it is well understood by years of history of special education and how cases have interpreted the federal IDA law that a school district would continue to have that obligation. So I don't think factually that could come to fruition.
Yeah, and that's my understanding as well. I think what Attorney Fenton is suggesting is we don't have any charter conversion schools, so we haven't seen this exact fact pattern before. But the analysis would start with the LEA has the obligation to provide the special ed services. And if they convert one or more of the schools in their district to be a charter school, that would not affect that obligation, which is imposed on them by federal law.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the event that this committee chooses to go forward with this legislation, could you please provide us with language that explicitly states that requirement rather than just an opinion that that requirement would be in place?
To the extent that we're able to, yes, we will certainly do that. I mean, we can reiterate what we have said today, and we can look into the federal law. I don't know how much further we could go from there, but I'm not with the Attorney General's office.
When you say language, do you mean like legislative language to use in the bill?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look. I mean, I'm sure we could suggest language to clarify. To the extent that the committee feels there's an ambiguity, we could suggest language that would clarify that the special ed obligation remains with the LEA regardless of the form of school that they choose to have in their district.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. I think that is.
I will, thank you, Madam Chair. Barry Christina, New Hampshire School Boards Association. Our understanding is that charter schools are not LEAs, they're not responsible for special education services. We've had numerous study committees, we've had numerous bills over the years trying to rectify the issue between charter schools and local public schools over special education services for children that are in charter schools. There's no carve-out in RSA 194B. Charter schools are not LEAs, and charter schools do not provide special education services. So if this bill were, and to be clear, NHSBA is not taking a position on this bill, but if you have a K through 5 school, one building within your community, and it's converted to a charter conversion school, it's no longer a public school. It's no longer a public school under RSA 189, 186, any of the other statutes that relate to your quote-unquote traditional public schools. It's a charter school. Charter schools are not obligated to provide special education services under New Hampshire law. Public charter schools are not required to provide special education. The responsibility still remains with the LEA, the quote-unquote traditional public school. There are various methods in which that is worked out and reached and planned between charter schools and local public schools, but sometimes that goes well, sometimes it doesn't. So Candia, for example, is a K through 8 school district, I believe, single building. So if they were to enact this and go to a charter conversion school, I don't know, there's a gap in the law as to who would be responsible for providing special education services for those children. And that's just one example. There are probably dozens more that I could think of in the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
More a request. Yeah, I can turn that into a question easily. Yes, thank you. Would you be willing to work with attorneys Fenton and Bond to arrive at language that addresses the question that Senator Hennessy raised, which is, can we provide language in 194 that specifies the LEA retains that responsibility for providing special education services?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I presume you mean 194B.
Yes.
I'll have Ms. Wilson from our office, who has a background in special education, speak with Attorney Fenton and Attorney Bond.
Thank you. Takes care of it for me.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to be clear, just again, for the record, NHSBA is not taking a position on this bill itself. We have no position on it, but the conversation lended itself to me feeling necessary to speak on this issue. Thank you. Thank you.
Give it to us, and we will read it. That will cut down on the actual time that we need, because we still have some more bills. So Representative Ladd, you are presenting 11:30? No. 15:13. Let's see, who is up for 15:13? Is Representative Boyd here? Yes, yes. So do we have Representative Boyd here? Okay. Representative Cordelio, could you introduce the bill then? Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Just introduce it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman Ward and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Rick Ladd. I'm Chair of House Education, representative from Haverhill. For the record, I'd like to introduce, I got to get the bill number here.
1513.
No, is it 1513?
Yes.
I'd like to introduce 1513. This is a bill that deals with relative to the definition of child with a disability for the purpose of special education. And we're dealing with the issue in this bill very quickly of the student that turns 21 in the middle of a school year. And this has been a issue throughout the state for years and years and years. Funding is done at age 21. When you turn age 21 in November and you're engaged in that school learning opportunity, many school districts now are saying you will continue for the duration of this school year. So that's what we have been trying to accomplish in this, is to keep a program intact for a student who has a handicapping condition, and most of these handicapping conditions for the child who is 21 are significant. And so it's wise to leave the student in school. However, we're looking at now, does the funding provide that? No, the local district has to do it the minute he turns or she turns 21. We'd like to see this continue through the school year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask Attorney Bond. Okay. Senator Hennessy has a question first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you believe that you have a bill before you in your committee a Senate bill that does the same thing?
I believe we have duplicate of everything coming at us. And you, unfortunately, you won't get the 103 duplicates. You'll get part of
Thank
them.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
But,
Yes, Senator Khan.
yeah, Madam Chair, thanks. Mr. Chairman, I think the issue then is, would you want to compare those two versions, which accomplish the same thing with different words, to avoid a
Senator
conference
Khan,
committee
I'm
down
with
the
you on
road?
that. What we're trying to do is just make it best for the student
Yeah.
and keep them in school and get the funding to support that effort. Right now, it's a huge cost on the part of districts. There's not that many students here, and folks from the department can better tell you the numbers of students we're talking about.
We've gone through this.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Didn't have the numbers, but again, I think the issue is, we're going to go to a conference committee if we don't put these two together, so if we can do that prior.
Hopefully, we'll come out with the same desired end by doing that, if we have to. If we have to.
We could do that, I think. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from Attorney Bond, because I know there are a lot of research and legal research that has gone into this. Yeah. Bond. No, wait a minute. I need to hear from Chris Bond. Well, his bill has been introduced, unless he wants to speak to it. I can find that out for you. Okay. I know there've been a lot of research going into this particular question, and we have a letter from Attorney Lehman, and I spoke with Commissioner Edelblut yesterday, and he said that you will be speaking on this particular issue.
Yes, again, for the record, Chris Bond from the Department of Education and Attorney General's Office. I specifically wanted to speak to the issue of the age 21 inclusive. The Attorney General's Office thought it was important the committee know that in our assessment, there's a significant risk that the state will face litigation over the law if it does not include language to go up to the age of 21. And that's based on some recent First Circuit precedent. And several other New England states have recognized that not having their special ed programs go up to the age 21 inclusive might be a violation of federal law. So Maine has made a change to do age 21 inclusive, as has Rhode Island. Rhode Island was the subject of the litigation. Connecticut, who is not in the First Circuit but in the Second Circuit, where there's similar case law now, has also done it. So there's significant risk if that language is not included, that the state will be subjected to lawsuits. They will probably be fairly discovery intensive and therefore expensive, and there's a significant risk that we would have to end up providing the services up to age 21, or inclusive, meaning up to age 22, in any event, regardless of what the law said. So we wanted you to be well aware of that risk, and I know that the Commissioner of Education would very much like to see the up to age 21 inclusive language that was originally in the bill when it was introduced, restored back into the bill.
So 21 inclusive, is that 21 plus 364 days, or is it including this 22nd birthday?
That's a good question. I believe it's 364 days. I believe on the 22nd birthday, you're no longer eligible, is my understanding.
Questions from the committee? Senator Roshardi.
It's more of a comment since we've already, since we established that we passed this duplicate bill in the Senate. I was just thinking that it would be good to either hold it in committee or move it to the floor where we could table it, and that way we have a spare as, you know, a way of making sure everything passes. It's just a suggestion.
Thank you. Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. So what you're telling us is the Senate version, we said that they can stay in school through the school year where they turn 21, but that's not inclusive of the 364, because if they turn 21, say in November, the Senate bill says they can finish out that school year. But what you're telling us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that they still have another few months that they could go to school in the next school year. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the IDEA's requirement is that it be age 21 inclusive, meaning the entire year that you are 21. And the language that I saw with that you described that would provide for finishing out the school year after you turn 21 wouldn't go all that way.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Senator Khan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bond, we'll talk about this again. So, are you aware that there are 14 other states, at least there were at the beginning of this year, that have language that's inclusive of the school year?
I was not aware of the number of states, no. I would say I'm aware that there's a trend of states to moving to include at least up to age 22. Whether or not some states have said the school year in which you turn that age or not, I'm not sure. But I'm also aware of the trend of federal circuit courts holding that as a matter of law, the IDEA requires it going up to this age if the state provides any funding support for education after age if a state provides any educational funding support for education up through age 22, which can include adult education programs, then they have this obligation. So I'm aware of that trend. I don't know what other states have done with it. I know what some of our neighbors have done. Again, I'm familiar that Maine has made a change to become compliant with this interpretation. Connecticut has, Rhode Island has, but as to the total number of states, I'm not familiar with that.
And, Madam Chair, may I continue?
Go ahead.
Are you aware that current federal statutes for IDEA state that it should be inclusive it should be inclusive of 21 unless a state enacts a law stating its own rule?
Yes, I'm familiar with that exception, and that exception was the subject of the lawsuit in the First Circuit, where Rhode Island made that argument, said they fell within that circumstance. The First Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed on the basis that Rhode Island provides adult education services beyond age 18. So they have their regular K-12 system in Rhode Island, but then people who don't graduate from the K-12 system and later decide to go back and finish their degree, there's adult education programs like HiSET, GED programs like that. The First Circuit said because Rhode Island has those kinds of systems, they can't really say that they are stopping education earlier than 22, so they can't avail themselves of the exception. The risk then for New Hampshire is if we took that same approach and said, well, there's this exception on IDEA based on state law, and we will just say our state law ends there, there's a substantial risk, in our view, that the court would say you were just like Rhode Island because New Hampshire, like Rhode Island, provides these adult ed services. That's a question that would have to ultimately be determined by a court whether or not our system is substantially similar to Rhode Island's, but there's a significant risk, and it's not immediately obvious that wouldn't be the case. So yes, I'm familiar with that, but the concern that we have is that the controlling First Circuit precedent strongly suggests that wouldn't apply here.
Madam Chair, I won't enter into debate with Mr. Bond, it's befuddling to me that a court views adult education, which goes to age 99, as we saw this last week, a person from Baltimore County receiving his adult education certificate at high school graduation. And to imply that that then means that special education services would continue through age 99.
Senator Khan apparently agrees with the dissent in the First Circuit case. I would encourage you to read the case. It's at 907 F. 3rd 639. It's called KL versus Rhode Island Board of Education. And again, I am not stating categorically that this case applies in New Hampshire. I'm suggesting that there's a substantial risk that a court would hold it to. And I have no opinion on your reasoning there. I understand what you're saying, but it's ultimately not up to the Attorney General's office to decide that. It's up to the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and I think the best evidence we have is that they might have a different view of it than you have, Senator.
All set?
I think there's room for an argument.
Thank you very much, Attorney Bond.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Representative Cadelli? Yes. I don't think,
He's the prime sponsor.
oh, the boy, okay, he wants to say something about his bill, okay. And then after that, we'll have Representative Cadelli. Representative Ladd introduced your bill.
I appreciate that.
So,
Okay, thank you very much.
so if you could keep whatever you're going to say down to 3 minutes, because we're running very short on time here.
Brevity is the essence of wit, Madam Chair, and I will certainly do that. Thank you very much, and I want to apologize through you to your Senate colleagues. I had another bill over across the street that I was waiting to testify on, so I sincerely apologize for wasting the committee's time, and I want to thank Chairman Ladd for introducing the bill. My name is Bill Boyd. I am a representative from Hillsborough District 21, representing the town of Merrimack. I'm here to testify in favor of House Bill 1513. I will amplify the previous points made by Chairman Ladd and would just point out to you a couple of different things that I feel that's salient. First off, I have provided copies of my previous testimony to, again, amplify what I'm going to testify to today. The two pieces that are salient when I first presented the bill was equitable treatment under the law and continuing care as it relates to children with disabilities who are aging out in the system today. I know this issue is very frustrating for parents in terms of being able to plan for their child's future, being able to move the age up to 22 allows that family to provide a level of strategic planning as it relates to that continuum of care so that they're able to allow that child to best adapt into the next stage of their life. I don't know, again, I apologize for any redundancy. The bill that was originally proposed seeked to align federal law. The language was verbatim to what's in the federal law. Currently, there are 42 states that have similarly like language that has eligible students up until the age of 22. The most important point that I would amplify, because this was amended in the Education Committee, I apologize, I'm looking for my notes. So the point that the Education Committee was looking to do was there are 79 students that are impacted in the state of New Hampshire that would benefit from this particular change. The Education Committee changed the date from a 60-day effective date to moving it out to July 1st of 2023 to allow the SAUs the appropriate planning for budgetary measures to accommodate those impacted students. And there was also concern amongst the committee after I testified that once that child reaches the age of 20, reaches the age of 22, that child being able to continue out to the end of the school year so that that continuum of care comes to a specific standing point as it relates to the school year. So that's the synopsis. I, again, thank you very much for hearing my testimony, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions through you to your colleagues.
Any questions from the committee members? Senator Khan?
Just as a courtesy to the prime sponsor, we had questioned, maybe I had questioned earlier, we've got two versions. We've got the Senate Bill 394, House Bill 1513. I think they both aim to accomplish the same thing. Is that something you try to work with us to reconcile whatever wording differences are so that we could have a common thread before we have to go to a conference committee?
So the short answer is yes. Obviously, the goal, because this was brought to me as a constituent concern from not one but two constituents in my community, but that the goal is that we're able to get children that are being aged out at 21, getting them up to that age of 22. So I know that the House came up with a little bit different language that doesn't mimic what the federal law does. I like the federal law, to be perfectly candid with you, but I'm also a realist, being a newly elected state legislator here in Concord. I understand that sometimes you may have to splice something to get to obtain the desired result. So I've read 394. I'm amenable to anything as long as it begins to solve the problem for this child population. Thank you, Senator Khan.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Representative Cordelli? Now, we have to keep it down to 3 minutes because we have one more bill to go. And I expect
Thank you,
as much
Chairman.
excitement about that one.
And thank you, committee members again. Glenn Cordelli, representing Tufton Borough, Moulton Borough, and Sandwich in the beautiful Lakes region. There was actually a third bill on this topic. I had submitted an LSR also, but then when I saw Representative Boyd's bill, I said, well, you go ahead. I've got enough on my plate. I'll withdraw mine. So, there's a lot of people coming at this from a pretty similar angle. This weekend, when I was looking at the bills that you were hearing this morning, I went back to take a look at 1513, and it struck me, I was not sure what was meant by school calendar year. Talking to someone in the department, it's not defined in rules or in statute anywhere. So with this wording, what would happen if a child turned 21 in August? Would they be able to attend school that year, which would be 21 inclusive? Or if they turn 21 in June, would they be able to attend school the next year? I think it's unclear the way this is written right now. So I said, I'm not going to go through all 50 state laws, but is there a summary anywhere? And all I could find was a 2004 letter from the Office of Special Education in the U.S. Department of Education, which had a summary of all the state laws and how they handle this. And I think that there were a couple that appealed to me in terms of language. And I'll just mention them. Washington, D.C. States that the child can attend school to the end of the semester in which they turn 22. And the other one was in California that says if they turn 22 between January and June, they can continue for the remainder of the year. If they turn 22 in October, November, or December, they can go until the end of that semester, which would typically be the end of the year. So, I think those are possible things that could be looked at in terms of wording, and I'm certain that everyone would like to work together and get one bill that we can get passed and signed. Thank you.
I agree with you. We need to have some very specific things written down so we know what we're doing. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Ladd, do you want to speak again?
Not on that bill.
Okay. Maura Ryan? Three minutes.
I'm not going to say a lot. My name is Maura Ryan. I'm a parent of a child with special needs, and I'm also a disabled veteran. I've written to members of the House and this committee because we as parents know that the federal law guarantees our children through age 22, which is age 21 inclusive, through their 22nd birthday. Senator Khan, Minnesota actually allows it up to 26. So if you'd like to go that route, let me know, because I'd support that. But I have read the First District Court Rhode Island case. I do believe that we should be at 22 inclusive in alignment with the federal law. As a constitutionalist, the Supremacy Clause says that any federal benefit that outweighs a state benefit should be awarded to the citizen, and I strongly believe that. I wrote in that I oppose the bill because I oppose the amendment. I support the idea of the bill, but I do think that it should be 21 inclusive to age 22, 22nd birthday. The parents know this because when we go to our advocacy courses, we are taught this. And we know that our kids are getting cheated of the time that they need in school. And they do need that time because they need some time to finish what they're starting emotionally and developmentally and intellectually. Many kids can get a high school diploma and they need more than 4 years to do it. But they can do it, and that helps them with their futures. In addition to that, I would also say that I would probably be one of the ones who would challenge it and say it should be 22 inclusive. Because parents know. We know that our kids should be getting that. We're aware of it. We've said that. There are parents who couldn't come today because they're working, but we know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you. Stacy Phillips.
I do have copies, but I also want to speak, so.
So keep it down to 3 minutes.
Definitely.
Good.
Page and a half.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Stacy Phillips, and I'm testifying today in support of HB 1513 as originally written. If a neurotypical child goes to school without a tool needed to access their free and appropriate education is likely an easy fix. Borrow a pen from a friend or a teacher, access a school computer, or a couple of notebooks. If a child that has needs does not have the tools needed to access that same education, it can take at least weeks, months, and at times years to get that child the tools needed. Sorry. My daughter is diagnosed with autism, ADHD, complex PTSD, OCD, and severely speech and cognitively delayed. She did not get early intervention services as she was a foster child from birth to after 3 when we adopted her. Then we got the gamut. My daughter's journey through her education has been filled with hurdles and doors literally slamming her. To describe every time she was denied access to her free appropriate education could fill a week of testimony easily, so I will stick to the biggest 3-year hurdle we faced. My child had no teacher the last week of 5th grade. She had no teacher as the teacher was yanked from her classroom for using a chair like a lion tamer against her. Yes, we called the police. Yes, we showed them the video of her description. And yes, we were told it was assault, but they could not understand my child, so there was nothing they could do. My husband and I had already spent 2.5 years, of which she had the same teacher for 3rd to 5th grade, asking, begging, pleading for out-of-district placement. Not only were her needs not being met, she was being blatantly abused, as well as educationally neglected. Her principal straight out said that her teacher was afraid of her. How can you teach someone you're afraid of? Answer, you can't. After touring middle school self-contained classrooms, we stated we still wanted her placed at her current, thank you, out-of-district placement, but would try one particular program in good faith. Over the summer, they closed that program before she could even start and placed her at another where we were told the autism specialist, when we toured, I've known your child since she was little, this is not an appropriate place for her. She was placed there anyway. I have a video where I asked my child, how was your day at school? And she responded by hysterically crying to the point of dry heaving that she was being pushed and hurt by one of the aides. She hated school, and she was afraid to go. It broke my heart. At the last IEP meeting we had before we won the out-of-district placement at mediation, the assistant superintendent of special education said she wanted to remove all educational goals and focus solely on behavior. She wanted to remove all educational goals from my daughter's individual education plan and focus solely on behavior. My child went without an education for at least the last 3 years. Now you want to continue not to educate her. Our story is not the exception. Sadly, in the special education world, it's often the norm. We have to fight every step of the way to get our children access to the free and appropriate education they have the right to by federal law until the age of 22. My daughter has flourished in her current placement, a school that takes children from Maine and Massachusetts as well. Her schoolmates will be allowed to remain until the day before they turn 22, but she will be kicked out the day before she turns 21. This change would ensure that she could also be allowed to remain, as that is what federal law mandates. I ask you that you support HB 1513 with a strong endorsement, and I also ask that it pass as it was originally written to age of 22. Give our children the education that they deserve and are federally required to have. And on a side note, when talking about a school calendar year, my daughter goes to a full year program. So where does that lie in the age of when she turns 21, 22? She will be kicked out the day before she turns 21 in March. And everybody else gets to go for a whole other year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How old is your daughter now?
She just turned 18.
Okay. So hopefully this will take care of another couple of years for her.
I probably will be joining Maura to do the lawsuit.
Questions from the committee members? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Karen Rosenberg.
Good morning, it's still morning, right?
It is still morning.
Awesome.
So
I'm
I don't know
Karen.
if you have heard the conversation, but were you really down to 3 minutes?
I got it, I heard.
Okay.
So I won't even take out my notes. I'm Karen Rosenberg, I'm the Policy Director at the Disability Rights Center, and I'm here to testify in support of HB 1513, but also encourage you to consider allowing that bill to revert to how it was originally written, to provide education services until a student turns, well, the day before their 22nd birthday, to align with federal law. The reasons that I support this bill are that it really does provide an opportunity for students who might not otherwise graduate. Credits aren't earned in weeks or months, they're earned by semester. So allowing a student to continue until the end of the school year is a benefit to students who might, through that bill, be provided an opportunity they wouldn't otherwise have. It also provides additional time for students to be able to gain those transition skills, supported employment, community-based programs that will help them to hopefully earn substantial gainful employment will actually be competitively employed and independent. The reason that I am encouraging you to actually revert to the original bill is that for students who aren't going to earn a diploma, those transition services are critical to their ability to become independent people and participants in our communities. And they're not attached to the school building necessarily. What they are getting is community-based services for the most part. And for those students, it really doesn't matter if they leave when their birthdays are in March or February or November, that extra year makes a difference. So anyway, I'm here. I'll answer any questions you might have. I hope I kept that under 3 minutes for you all. I can talk fast.
Any questions from the committee members? I don't see one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Unless there's somebody else who has something to say, has to sign up, this ends
I would like to.
15:13.
I would like to. That's
Okay, can you keep it down to 3 minutes?
okay. I will.
Okay, good.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Pamela Eddy, and I'm a parent of a 18-year-old who has autism. And I will just mimic exactly what the lady before me said. I just really support up until the age of 22. I really, it's been a constant concern as a parent of a child who is significantly challenged. So I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Pamela Eddy, E-D-D-Y. Thank you.
Are there anybody else who needs to talk to Senator Khan?
Madam Chair, could we ask Ms. Fenton to join us? There was just, there's some open-ended questions to the department from 394 that we haven't gotten data on.
Ms. Fenton, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Ms. Fenton, the number of students that we are talking about who, and the number of districts that are extending, currently doing what these bills define as through the school year. Those were questions when we debated 394, and I believe you and Ms. Fredette were going to try to get the numbers for us. You may not have them yet, but I just wanted to reiterate that in finalizing on this policy, understanding the number of students, which I think is 159, who reach age 21, the question about how many schools are currently extending services through the school year, and then this question that's come up about is the school year through June or August?
So, thank you. To the extent the department did not provide you that information, we will be sure to do that. I apologize for that delay. I do believe that there was some testimony to that. I believe the number was about 79 students. And I think that it is also laid out in the fiscal note. But we can certainly circle back to the committee with those exact numbers so the committee understands the parameters of who will be affected.
Senator Hennessy?
Thank you. I don't have the fiscal note in front of me, but I think it just addressed the out-of-district placements. And I think we were looking for the in-district students as well.
Sure.
Is that what you were referring to? Thank you.
Sure, we can get you that information.
Any other questions, concerns? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else on 1513? If not, we end the testimony on House Bill 1513 and move directly into House Bill 1434. And as you can see, it's 10 minutes past 11. So we need to move fast in order to get through this bill. So the sponsor? $14.34. It's 10 to 9.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Prudhomme O'Brien. I'm a
Okay,
repres-
before you start, let me just tell you, you're limited to 3 minutes.
Okay, I will try.
Okay.
I represent Derry, the town of Derry, and this bill was inspired by a frustrated parent in my area who was feeling like she was on the defensive to get some information about curriculum. That may have been a real or perceived situation. I don't know for sure, but I looked at the situation, and that was over the summer, and I thought of my time as a library trustee. When I was a library trustee, the library trustee meeting minutes were always available in notebook form at the library, so any member of the community could go and look at it and see who voted on what and what amount of money was spent on window repairs and things of that nature. And I thought, why is the curriculum not as available as the library, as in the same manner that the library trustee meeting minutes are? I've also created curriculum for my own children because I taught them until they went to high school. I taught them at home, and I know that the curriculum can change a little bit depending on the needs of the students and the abilities of the students. So I put in here that it would be available by November 1st, which would give a teacher a little bit of time to make those adjustments if needed. And I also tried to aim this at the ease of teachers who are also submitting this curriculum to their principals and the curriculum committees. And they would, of course, have to have that sort of a curriculum, because you couldn't start your year and say to the principal or curriculum committee that this year I'll be teaching whatever. That doesn't work. I don't think there's any teacher in New Hampshire schools that do that. They have a curriculum that they write up, and whatever that is what would be put in this notebook and made available at the SAU unit building or online if they have a web presence. Not every school does, so I am not saying that is a must. I'm trying to make it very doable, very easy for schools to comply with, but also will allow the community to know what the curriculum is. There are positive reasons for this as well. Some people focus on the negatives of this, but if you're impressed with students in a certain community, or you're impressed with test scores, or you're impressed with anything that's happening in a certain community, you can go and see what curriculum they're using. You could think about advocating for that curriculum to be used in your own community, or implementing it yourself if you're homeschooling. So I think there are some definite positives about this bill as well. And I do believe it's the right of the community to know this information, just as it's the right of the community to know the information about the way their tax funds are spent at libraries.
Thank you. Questions from the community? From the community. Outfits are getting late.
I'll
From
take
the
those too.
committee. Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you. Question on, you said a November 1st date, but I don't see November 1st here. Is it
I'm looking at line 4, where it says the school board shall ensure that by November 1st of each year, a comprehensive list of all curriculum course materials taught to pupils in, okay, so it's on line 4.
And the amended bill?
It's right here.
Can you tell us, what does your heading say of that bill?
1434, relative to the availability of school curriculum materials.
So it doesn't say as amended by the House? I think we
No.
might have an issue with the
Yeah,
bills
maybe
we
we do.
have.
Do we? Okay. I think that's something that Mr. Cordelli could explain a little bit more.
Just to
well?
clarify, because I did look at the copies available at the sign-in table. So what Representative Prudhomme O'Brien is reading off of is the as-introduced version of the bill. The members have the as-amended version that passed the House, which is the version that we received.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, without having a copy in front of me, of which I don't, what line 4 looks like in the as-amended version.
I think Representative Ladd has something.
I signed up to speak, I can explain what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'll hold my question.
Did you want to add something more?
No, are there any other questions that I might be able to help you with?
Yeah, I just, Madam Chair.
Senator Khan.
Are you looking for a syllabus?
If a syllabus is what they're calling it, okay. Usually that starts around high school, college. Prior to that, it's more of a what they call a curriculum. But if a teacher does call it a syllabus, okay. They're usually not as formal in the lower grades.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Representative Ladd.
Got the amended version. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Rick Ladd. I'm representative from Haverhill, New Hampshire, and I'm here to speak on 1434. 1434, when it arrived in our committee, was in another area of statute than you have in the amended version. It was initially there in 18910A. We looked at the statutes, and we found an area where we thought it was more apropos that this information be placed, and that's 186:11 Roman 9C, which I believe that's what you should have in front of you now. This bill, as where it's amended, deals with policies set up by school districts and schools. And we've had a number of people come before the committee saying, when we go to the school board, we're unable to get this information in a timely manner, or we are unable to just get the information, our request to find out what's going on in our child's classroom or in the schools. When we did our research as a committee, we also found that in this statute already that you have in front of you, it says, to the extent practicable, a school district shall make curriculum course materials available to parents or legal guardians for review upon request. That's in statute now. Now, what we've added in there into statute, so, and of course, curriculum materials is defined in state law. Curriculum basically says lessons and academic content taught in schools in a specific course or program. Now, the materials that folks are looking for are what's going on in the classroom. It doesn't have to be, where it says to the extent practicable, you can't be giving out the equipment or the computers or all the reams and reams of literature or books or slides or whatever are used in that class. We understand that. What we've got now is we're adding to that area within the statute where practicable, and upon request, a parent, legal guardian, or resident of a public school has the opportunity to review and look at these course materials and to have them, that availability within 10 business days. So there is a time limit in which they have to be provided. The materials that we're looking at are those that a parent should have access to, legal guardian should have access to, and where the question came up in committee, should a resident of a school district have that opportunity to acquire materials? Now, as a school principal, when I was working in a K-8 building, I had the business community come to me and say, hey, we'd like to know what you're doing in terms of computers in your school. What platform are you using? Are you using the DOS or the old, which back then we were, or DOS? Yeah, yeah, okay. But then we also, though, within schools, we're busy with the Apple line.
You have 30
And
seconds.
okay, so what we did, we worked with them, we shared our curriculum with them. We shared what we're doing, and we eventually got on the same platform between business community and what we're doing in schools. This needs to be done, too, in terms of all those that are looking for this information, whether you're a parent or a guardian or a resident of a district. You should have the opportunity. You're a taxpayer. You're flipping the bill for these materials. You should know what's going on in the schools. And we encourage more people involved in schools, the stronger and the more positive the school environment becomes. So we did change the location in statute. We just modified statute, which was already in place, to add in resident of the district and within 10 business days. Thank you very much.
Senator Hennessy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for making me laugh, Representative. Could you tell me, the sponsor of the bill had mentioned a November 1st date. So if there's a new student, because I imagine Senator Khan might ask this question, if there's a new teacher to the district and they start, whatever, August 28th or something like that, they might not have their full year curriculum put in place yet, but perhaps by November 1st, is what the sponsor said, they would. Was there a reason why you took that date out? What was the discussion in your committee?
We took the date out simply because we felt that the date wasn't needed. When you're teaching in a classroom, you are teaching a specific curriculum and lessons that have been, in most cases, adopted by the school district as that's what we're doing. That's our scope and sequence of knowledge and skills that we teach. Yes, the lessons are changing daily, and I understand that. You have to have the teachable moment is very, very important. And that's, I believe what we're looking for here is to have that curriculum. Yes, in the 4th grade, you are doing this in literature. Yes, this is what we're doing. You have your multiplication facts down by before Christmas, that type of thing. That should be known before you can get in the classroom and start teaching. A parent coming into the community would like to know, are you teaching U.S. history in the 5th grade, or are you waiting until 7th and 8th grade to do it? It's done in both in most schools. But they like to know that in terms of how they can help and do homework at home, help them in the learning process. So I believe all schools, right out of the blocks, the first day of school, they know what's going on. They may not know what's going on October 16th, but they know what we're doing in that first quarter.
Any other questions? Senator Khan?
I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. So briefly, one of the great things about competency-based education is you put this stuff together, right? And you can be made available. I think the nefarious. So I know, and I didn't really want to repeat it, but I want to be quick. So parents ought to ask whatever questions they wish, right, of the school. Certainly, it seems to me entirely reasonable. It's when a resident of the district, that's where I've seen the requests become an abundance of information where nothing seems to satisfy the request. It could be for 9 grades in a school district. And we're requiring here within 10 days. And that's where I've heard the school district say, oh, I got a right to know request. I've got to do this. And so the point being here, could we say within a reasonable period so that a parent who's asking for the curriculum in their student's grade ought to be, the snap of the finger available. That's, I think, what you and I are envisioning. However, we also are aware that some districts, so it's on line 17, it says within 10 business days. Could we say within a reasonable period so that request for 9 grades of material where you're going to get asked for every book and every film that's used in the class, that there's a reasonable period of time?
Yeah, the only concern I would possibly have, it becomes a lawyer's dream of what reasonable is. But I think I'm open to that. The primary goal here is for us to make materials available. It says early, a couple lines in the statute already that not less than 2 weeks advance notice. We're talking about timeframes all through statutory language. But I have no problem with saying within a reasonable period of time, this will be provided. I think it's important that what's going on in the classroom is not perceived as something that's going on with the door closed and you got this hidden agenda going on. I don't believe that's what's going on. And I think the more we're open, all that acrimony that we've heard about in the last year and a half during COVID, I hope to get past that and get down to, and that's why we also said in a grade level course or program, we didn't want grades, we didn't want on and on. We're trying to limit it to, you're coming in, you have a child that's going to be entering the 6th grade. What's going to be taught in the 6th grade in this school? How can I help? And I think it's just not going to be the parent or guardian. It's going to be oftentimes the grandparent or a friend of the family that's getting information back to a parent who's wanting maybe to move into town. There's a whole lot of reasons why I think we need to extend the availability of this. And even if it's, I had in my library, one of the libraries that I had in the school, all the materials which were used at various grade levels, the textbooks, the support materials. Folks are welcome to come in and talk to the librarian. First talk to the classroom teacher, but talk with the librarian as well. It should be there. So reasonable, I have no problem with that, Senator.
Senator Hennessy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking through this, Representative, does it say in what format the material?
I think that's a local issue. I think that's something that the school district can decide. I think when we try to get down in the weeds and start to define what it is, the lessons, we already have in law the words lesson and academic content taught in school. That's under curriculum right now in 193E. I think that's as far as we need to go as a state. Let the local district figure that one out.
So follow up, if they would like to just have a website where they have the curriculum on their website and provide a link to the person requesting the information, they're able to do that?
Yeah, we say in this law right here, require school districts to adopt a policy. So they write the policy. They like to write the administrative guidelines. We write the law. So I think that it's very important that we allow the district to set this up and to provide the materials they feel that's adequate to meet the need. It's different from various parents who come in. Some parents are looking for more than others, and that's why I would always advise, see the teacher first. See the principal. Look at the librarian, and you'll get your information.
Thank you.
Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Senator Ward. As a follow-up, although it's not in the, so Senator Hennessy, it's not in the bill as amended and brought forward to us by the House, but in the methodology, it talks about the fiscal note, it talks about like the website and, it could be posted on the website and that they would have to provide access to physical copies, which would be available at the SAU location.
That might have, sorry,
Well,
that may have been in the original bill because they don't update
We wrote
that.
this so it says review upon request. You don't have to hand it all to them. It can be available in the library or in the classroom or in the principal's office.
Okay. I mean, because I just think that it is weedy, but the website,
I think that's from the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that and one, may I?
Sure.
So I just want to, so why do we have to have, so I agree with making the information public, and in particular, I think that, for the parents, that's the parents, the grandparents, I hear you on that. There could be a concern where, we see this not really on the school side, but one of the communities in my district, there is somebody who makes right-to-know requests every day and volumes of them, so it like almost ties up government operations. I don't think that's what we want to do here. I think we want to make this widely available to those that want to have access to it. But do we need to say 10 days? Can we actually, I'm just floating the idea instead of reasonable, which can become, what does reasonable mean? Do we allow, require in here that the school district or whoever it is provide, a policy on how they're going to do this?
I think reasonable is fine. We oftentimes share materials between school districts. We have daycare centers within communities which are also asking for materials. They're not parents, they're not guardians, but it's important that we work cooperatively together. I think the whole idea here is that, and I think Senator Khan is correct, make it available in a reasonable period of time. It is available. It is available. It is public information. There is a right to know. We get right to know requests up in the House Education every month for materials we're doing. We get it at that level. I used to get it at the school districts too. There are those that do that. The majority, though, the vast majority coming and asking are really wanting to know how I can help my kid.
Follow up? I agree, and I'm not looking to restrict any access. I'm just suggesting that, we leave this to the school district to write a policy or on how they're going to do it. That's all, just one, because I think reasonable, I like reasonable, but I'm also hearing does reasonable, is it, what exactly is that going to be? So I was looking to leave it to somebody.
Well,
to
we have
actually write.
about two attorneys behind me, I'm sure, at least two.
They probably love that word.
Yeah, they love it.
So
Mhm.
I do want to, we're on the same page in large part. I'm just trying to solve this problem around access so that we can get access, but for especially some of the smaller schools and districts, it doesn't become overwhelming if they don't have a way to, say, post it on a website or whatever it might be.
I think most good teachers are doing that. I had staff that would weekly put stuff on the web. Here's what we're doing. They send just a synopsis of what we're doing. Parents loved it. And with that, you'll see achievement scores go up. That's what homework's all about, study skills, applying it at home. So I think that the intent of this is a real good intent. Maybe we need to just take the number out of there and put something like reasonable in, so that it's understood that the materials will be shared.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
To Megan Tuttle. Try for 3 minutes.
Oh, definitely. Good morning again. My name is Megan Tuttle, for the record, President NEA New Hampshire. Our concern with this, honestly, listening to everything that's been brought up and listening in House Ed, really is just the workload issue for the educator or teacher, and that's been brought up. Changing the 10 days to reasonable definitely makes that a little easier. And just looking, as it also was brought up, just to echo the concerns about anybody in the district that might not be a parent, guardian, grandparent, family member, et cetera, of that student. So those are our other concerns, and I won't go on because they've already been discussed.
Questions from the members? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Luno? Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Let's see, 1434.
That's
Correct?
what I think.
All right,
Yeah,
for the
we
record,
own that.
right. For the record, Dave Luno, representing Merrimack County District 10, the people of Hopkinton and Concord, and I serve on the House Education Committee. Just a quick partisan point on House Bill 1434. It was a partisan bill both in the committee and on the floor of the House. Recommended ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 10-9 out of committee and 185 to 152 off the floor of the House. And so it lands here in your lap this morning. My brief testimony is basically going to follow a three-point roadmap. First, that this bill, as amended, fails to recognize the governance model for public school districts. Number 2, it establishes an unreasonable burden on teachers and administrators. And number 3, that it totally misses the overwhelming public support for public schools. And so to the first point, the bill as amended extends the existing law, and I believe that the existing law was testified on by Chairman Ladd. It extends the existing law beyond the reasonable access afforded to a student's family to request and review material that they might find to be objectionable. And it extends that to any resident of the school district. School districts are, of course, subject to school board governance through their elected school board members, and they are the ones that represent the needs of residents and voters of the district who pay for the public schools. So a resident that has any concerns about the operation of their school district, the curriculum that's being delivered, I think duly should go through their school board in order to receive that information.
40 seconds left.
Sorry about that. Private schools are not subject to this kind of governance or representation, even if they use public funds. This is uniquely subject school boards to an unreasonable inspection and regulation by any member of the public, as opposed to just the governing body. And I guess finally, I'd say that what we learned on earlier this week during the voucher oversight committee is that only 0.13% of families have moved their children out of public schools into the voucher program. And in the era of school choice, I think parents have made the overwhelming decision to choose public schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee members? Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. So I don't read the bill as extending the objection to anyone beyond parents or guardians. Can you show me where in the bill it does that?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. So the copy that I have is Amendment 0992H, which was the committee amendment and was passed the House. And on line 16, on that amendment, it says, upon request from a parent, legal guardian, or resident of the public school district.
So that, in reading that, if you finish the sentence, that's request for the materials, that's not extending the objection.
No, it's not extending
Okay,
the objection.
sorry, I thought
It's requesting the materials.
Okay,
That's
previously you said extends the objection to those people.
I think I said extends the request for the materials beyond the student's family.
Any other questions?
Madam
Senator
Chair,
Khan.
thanks for allowing that. The question of resident, I mean, I appreciate that this was attached to 18611. And I understand, and in this whole section of law relates to the rights of parents and legal guardians. And so is that the basis for what I think is your suggestion that by extending this to any resident, now it's become something other than what this section had provided for?
Thank you, Senator Khan, for the question. That's exactly it. I believe the section in law was really there so that parents and guardians who have children in the students in the school district could get out in front of what could be considered to be objectionable material and provide the parents or guardians an ability to maybe direct their students' education a little bit differently when that was being done. If a resident of the school district, so now we're not talking about somebody who's uniquely a parent or guardian of a student, feels the same way, then that objection or that either request for data or an objection to, I don't think my school district should be teaching umpty-ump should be directed through the local governing body, the elected school board officials.
Well said, Seneca.
I think so. Are you suggesting a separate section? I mean, if we wanted to do that, it ought to be a separate section, or just take it out and make it consistent?
I think you take it out. I would recommend either referring this for interim study or as inexpedient to legislate. And I think any resident of a school district has the right to approach a school board member and request of that member information about whatever it is they want to find out about on their school district.
I have a comment. It seems to me, say that we are legislators and we live in different towns, and often we hear things being said about curriculum in school. We have a question asking. As a resident without children in school, it seems to me I should be able to go down and say, what does the curriculum look like? Because how can I answer the question without seeing it, without having to go run through hoops to find out from the school committee members?
Yeah.
I have heard several suggestions of placing the information in the local library for people who are working and cannot get to the school library during the day, that it should be available, either a computer where they can look it up or something, so make it available for anyone. So just because you're a resident doesn't have children in school, I should not exclude you from finding out what's going on. And we do get questions and comments all the time about curriculum in school and what's going on and what kind of book are they using. And without being able to find out, I can't answer that question.
Right. No, thank you. I appreciate the comment, Madam Chair, and I believe that still would provide legislators and other members of the public to direct those questions through their school boards.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Deborah House. Three minutes?
Okay. Good morning. My name is Deborah Howes. I am president of American Federation of Teachers New Hampshire, and this is my first time addressing the Senate Education Committee, so thank you for taking my testimony. I'm here to talk about HB 1434, and I will try not to repeat what everyone else has said, but we are opposing this bill as it is written. My members have concerns about the way this bill is written in that it does nothing to foster the kind of communication we need with parents. We want to work in team with parents of our students and guardians of our students. We really value that strong two-way communication about curriculum and what's going on in our classrooms, and this bill does nothing to help that. As a previous speaker has mentioned, there are a lot of things already going on where teachers are reaching out to parents to talk about what's going on in the classroom, putting up websites and blogs and things to talk about what we're teaching so we can inform parents. And if parents have questions, the best way to find out about what's going on in the classroom is a phone call or an email. That's fostering good two-way communication. So that you know what's going on in your child's classroom. This bill has nothing in it that will enhance that communication. So from that standpoint, it doesn't help what we need to do to focus on student success and be a team working together. Our main concern with this is, I heard another phrase that I wrote down because it really struck me, a lawyer's dream. Curriculum course material is used to support student learning is not something that's easy for teachers in the classroom to grasp exactly what that means. What is it we would have to produce within 10 days when a parent, guardian, or member of the community requested it? Just sitting here, we heard that is a syllabus, a scope and sequence, the published curriculum, Or perhaps all of the things you use to support student learning. That could be a lot, and it's not the school board that's going to be doing that work. It's, you know, the teacher who's going to have to go around and gather all those materials, and this could be at any time. There was not one date in that bill. So someone who wanted to know what was going on in a classroom, and it doesn't have to be their own student's classroom, because any member of the community could ask for this, could require you to produce apparently everything. That is the concern my members have with this bill. We want to be focusing on teaching our students what they need to know based on the curriculum we're following that was adopted by the school board, that you know, there are committees in place that adopt the curriculum. The curriculum is indeed a policy that is, you know, adopted above us, and we're here working, and we would like to be able to teach our children in the classrooms and not have to stop what we're doing to gather everything we have presented, both the published curriculum, the additional text, maybe every example we've written on the board, because someone has requested all the material used to support student learning. That's the fear that's out there, is that something like this would have the unintended consequence, the lawyer's dream, that is what would have to be produced within 10 days. And that's really all I wanted to present. You have got a lot of teachers concerned that that's where something like this could go if someone wanted to make an issue of it. We know most parents would have much more confined questions, but that doesn't mean that that's where it would stop. Yes.
Thank you. Senator Shardy?
Thank you for your testimony.
Mhm.
So if you have it on a link or on a website,
Mhm.
for transparency's sake, because I know as a parent myself, our children are the most important thing in our lives.
Yep.
And we want to know what they're being taught.
Yep.
So that we can assist them, so that we can have a good understanding. So if it's all there from the beginning and transparent where it's there, then you won't be having to stop teaching to provide extra materials.
If this clearly said all that needed to be provided was the district-approved curriculum, or the district-approved scope and sequence, or what published materials the district is using, that would be a lot clearer. And then I'm not worrying about, oh my goodness, did I run off an extra page of multiplication examples 4 weeks ago because we needed more practice on 2-digit by 1-digit multiplication that day? And did I save a copy, or did I pass them all out because you know, someone spilled juice on their copy and I had to give an extra copy out? It's these things that people worry about. Did I save enough copies so I could give out? You know, so I'd have one spare when someone came looking for it.
Follow up. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think the intent, and is that
Mhm.
an extra page of multiplication. I think it's just an overall course materials that are being taught that parents want to know,
Mhm.
is my student getting what they need? And it should be, I think, perfectly transparent and acceptable to know what your child is being taught.
So if we could make clear that it is, you know, the district adopted curriculum, something that's above the individual classroom teachers level, that would ease a lot of the concerns from my members about this. I know, at least all the districts I've dealt with also have policies about what are allowable supplemental materials. My background is a reading teacher. If I wanted to, bring in additional materials because my students are having trouble understanding cause and effect, there was a reading library of books that I could choose from. And if I wanted to find something else, there were websites that have been approved, but there were policies already in place for where you could go to find extra materials. So it wasn't like I would just go searching through everything in the world to choose additional materials. But if those kind of policies are in place, then there should be some level of comfort for parents to know that what's being chosen is appropriate, and it's not just one person's decision. It's already gone through the policy-making bodies, of the school board. So it seems like having to, provide supplemental materials might not be necessary for this if you've already had that level of local policymaking approval.
Yes. Any other questions? Thank you very
Okay.
much. Representative Horrigan. Representative Horrigan, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was
State your
waiting,
case.
waiting on the lobby, and the YouTube stream is like a minute or so behind. So I'm Representative Timothy Horrigan for Stratford County District 6, the towns of Durham and Madbury, which is part of the Oyster River Cooperative School District, which, and I can't speak for all school districts, but generally speaking, school districts are quite happy to tell anybody what it is they're teaching, although there may be some details of some things that go in the classroom that have to remain confidential. I'll mention first, I sit on the Judiciary Committee, which does the Right to Know bill. That doesn't apply to classrooms because schools aren't public bodies. The school board is a public body, so that's why its proceedings are subject to right to know, but the classroom isn't. I think that's appropriate. And some aspects of things the school board do are specifically exempted from right to know, like pupil records and stuff. And the prime sponsor, of course, she was speaking to her original version of the bill. She said, why the library trustee minutes but not the curriculum? Those are two very different things. And the library board is a public body, so its meetings are a public record. The classroom, what goes on in the classroom is not a public record. But there's usually no great secret here. Oyster River School District, I think every school district, as I said, they're very proud of what they teach their students, so they're not like trying to hide how it is they're doing things. One thing, there's a slight snafu over here that you put out the bill is introduced instead of the bill is amended by the House, so somebody, but that was a rookie mistake on my part. I've only been here 7 terms. I should have printed up the bill is amended. I should have known better. And if you're making all the curriculum materials available to just anybody, you're going to run into licensing and copyright issues, and this bill also doesn't specifically address testing, but testing is part of the curriculum. Testing materials in particular, you don't necessarily want to make them public because for various reasons, such as they have experimental questions in there that they're testing for use as live questions in later academic years. I think this, finally, one thing, the bill as amended is much preferable to the original bill, but it is kind of a strange place to put this in with the section about objectionable material, which is apparently basically only sex ed type material, because this covers all materials, including things that aren't related to what the original intent of the law was. So that's, so if you do proceed, you're probably going to totally rewrite the bill anyway. So I would advise not moving forward with this and leaving it the way it is. And I certainly don't know of any school districts that are hiding what it is they're doing. Certainly my school district, as I've said 3 times already, is very proud of what it's doing. They're usually quite happy to brag about it to anybody who wants to listen to them. And I'm sure the same is true and should be true in all school districts in this state, and also with charter public schools. So, and this bill does take charter schools into account, but I'm not sure about the procedure for charter schools really works. Although certainly better than the original bill where they would have to let just anybody onto campus if they wanted to rummage around through the curriculum materials.
That's your 3 minutes.
Thank you, okay.
Questions from the committee? I have one
Yes,
question.
thanks.
You said that it could be a licensing issue?
Yes.
For the publishing? Why would it be if I go and read the material, a book that have been printed? Why should that be an issue?
Well, that is true, maybe just inspecting it, but there'll certainly be pressure to make copies of it and put them on the website, certainly. And, but often these materials are made available only for educational purposes. They're often excerpts from books. They're often redacted version of books, so perhaps the author doesn't necessarily want, is happy to have them in the classroom setting, but doesn't necessarily want them replacing the full version of their works, in the public, that the wider public, reading public might read. And certainly there will be a lot of pressure to allow copies of it, and then we'll want to put everything on the website. But yeah, so there are licensing and copyright issues. And then also some of these things, testing material and curriculum materials kind of overlap a lot, and there's appropriate reasons for testing materials not to be, not to be made public. So.
I can see the licensing if you are giving permission to the school to use a particular piece. But if I'm not copying it and distributing it, there shouldn't be an issue, right?
I wouldn't, don't want to really definitively disagree or agree with you, but I think they're.
No, you just mentioned it, and I was just curious
Yes.
where you went with it. So.
Yes, it's just somebody who's a writer myself and done a little self-publishing, I would probably be sensitive to it. If I made a special version of it for the classroom, I wouldn't necessarily want it to be seen outside the classroom. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pamela, Eddie? Is Pamela, Eddie still here? Thank you. Attorney Fenton? Oh, I'm hoping to finish. Wait, this is, she isn't here anymore? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who has something to say about this particular bill that didn't sign in? If you can make a 3-minute statement, because we're really running out of time here.
I'll be quick. My name is Charlie Post. I'm speaking on the bill. I forgot the number. And I live in Lineborough, New Hampshire, and I'm on our local school board, SAU 63. I heard some mention about that members of the community and people that weren't parents or guardians, shouldn't have ready and available access to this information. It seems to me that the more daylight that goes into this, be able to inspect the curriculum, be able to see it online, be able to see a top line look at it, would be much more helpful and diffuse the 91A requests that are going on. The school board gets a lot of discussion about curriculum, and it's important that school board members, be responsible for formulating it. But once it's done, once that work has been done, it should be published, and it should be there for everybody to see. So that was my thought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Hennessy has a question for you.
Thank you. Do you mind taking my
No,
question?
certainly.
Well, thank you for waiting, and thank you for volunteering on the school board. I know that it's a lot of work.
It has been lately.
There was a suggestion that instead of doing this route, that a member of the public go to you, a
Right.
member of the school board, and request this information. It seems like an additional step added to your volunteer time that then you would have to get the information anyways. Is that the route that you would propose?
No. I mean, it should be available already. If they come to me, I'm going to just have to turn around and go to the teacher or the administrator or the principal. Actually, ideally, you'd have to go to the superintendent. And it just adds a step, an unnecessary step in the process and leads to further frustration from who's ever requesting it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was somebody else? Okay. 3 minutes, not
Okay,
more.
I'm going to make it quick. My name is Lisa Post. I'm a representative from Limeboro and cover Francistown, Wilton, Limeboro, and Greenville. I am also on the budget committee of the school board. We get a lot of folks coming in to ask about curriculum, and their reason for doing so is because a lot of what the kids do now is online in the school. We all, in our district, everybody gets a tablet. So that's where they're doing their homework. So when the child comes home and has maybe had a few minutes at school to finish their homework, they come home, mom says, "What'd you do today?" Right? "What'd you have for homework?" And there's a disconnect. And folks want to be able to know how their kids are doing, making sure they're doing their work, and being there to be able to answer questions and help them. And in our school district, we do have a curriculum coordinator, so that curriculum is set up from K to 12 to have consistent learning, so as a child goes from grade to grade, that they are, what they've learned in 3rd grade will help them learn better in 4th grade because they have those basics from 3rd grade behind them and what they need. And a lot of times, teachers are very busy, don't always catch a child who may be falling behind, just falling behind a little bit, but then by the time they get to the next grade, they may be struggling because they really didn't have the basics down pat. So having the curriculum online for a parent to look at, and they can see it across the board. And if they have a really bright student and you don't have a program for, higher achievers in your school, what they can do is they can start working on what they need to for the next year to help them grow. And for those kids who struggle with things, then their parents can help them as well. So that's why I think it's important for these to be put up on the website of the SAU, the school district, whatever. Also, there's Power School for a lot of schools use that, and a lot of that is already on there. So it should be a super simple thing, and it could be just the fact that we need to educate our parents where to find this information. So I support this bill for transparency. Thank you very much.
You did well. You're just short of 3 minutes. Any questions?
Oh, sorry. Any questions?
I don't see any. You can leave. Excused. Unless I hear from anybody else in the audience who hasn't had a chance to say what they'd like to say about this bill, we are closing the hearing. Thank you very much. A little bit into the lunchtime, but not too much. What do you want?